Hello, everyone, and happy 100th birthday, Maple Shade, on this 22nd day of September in the year 2022. On behalf of the Maple Shade Centennial Committee, my name is Tony Egner, and I am here along with two longtime residents of Maple Shade, Betty Procopio and Joe Dugan. In the next 30 minutes or so, we are going to talk about such topics as growing up in Maple Shade, along with some history of our little town. I, for one, think this is going to be pretty cool, as we get to hear about Maple Shade from two people that have lived in it and enjoy talking about its history. So without further ado, let's dive right in, and we're going to ask some questions of the two participants today. First, Joe.
Yes, sir.
What was your first memory from being a child or being a kid in Maple Shade?
Well, as we celebrate our 100th anniversary, I can't go back that far, but I can go back 83 years. I hate to admit that. I can go back 83 years.
Wow.
And I guess my earliest memories of Maple Shade are kind of sad. We were going through the Second World War. I lived on Linwood Avenue, and there was nothing behind us but the railroad at that time. And we could sit and watch the trains going from Philadelphia to Fort Dix with the tanks, with the Jeeps, and then the soldiers were coming back and forth. And as kids, we used to go down and wave to them as the trains went by and wish them luck and hope that they would be safe. We also remember the gold stars that started appearing in people's windows during that time. Very, very tragic. An awful lot of people were lost in Maple Shade during that tragic war. And the Gold Star mothers always led the parades on Memorial Day. And there were hundreds of people, believe it or not, that would turn out for those memorial parades. And we would go up to the Soldier and Sailor Monument, which was on the Catholic school property. And we would celebrate the day and thank them for their services.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, man. Betty, how about you? Do you have any first memories of being a kid in Maple Shade?
I started kindergarten first grade. There were 55 students in our first grade class, so there are quite a few. And also, I always liked school, and I had a younger sister. She was 2 years younger. And whatever I was doing, she was also learning for me. I said, this is what we did in school today, and then Barbara would sit next to me. And then I had an older sister, Marge, and an older brother, Sam. And Sam was in the Air Force, and he liked to travel, and he ended up with a travel agency, and he also worked with the Philadelphia Eagles. There were lots of children on our street, and so we played jump rope on the sidewalk, jacks, different children's games, and it was a happy time in that respect. Talking about military, I have a picture of my Uncle Joe. He's also my godfather, and he was at Normandy Beach, and he was in the first wave that came through, and right behind him, there were heavy items they had to carry, so they had to go through the water, and a lot of them brought the soldiers down. General Omar Bradley was there to welcome all the soldiers that were able to assist. Again, he was in every war. He was in World War II. He was at Anahuac for the atom bomb. He was France and Germany. He was also the worst one was the very last war he was in, and he was wounded in that war. So, but he recovered, and he lived. He wanted to be buried at Fort Dix. He could have been buried in Washington, D.C., but he said his happiest days were at Fort Dix, and that's where he is.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. We appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Another question I just kind of thought about. You both grew up in Maple Shade, correct? Yep. So where was your favorite place, Betty, to hang out when you were a teenager in Maple Shade?
Well, Shucks.
Yeah.
Shucks, they had a...
It was Kenny's at first, and then it turned into Shucks.
Shucks, and then they had like music that played, and they had ice cream, of course, and...
The sweet shop was a good place to hang out.
Yeah. I actually remember that my brother and sister too, that Shucks was the place, you know, in town. I mean, you know, growing up and all that kind of stuff. So, Joe,
Yes.
you jumped the gun, but I'm going to ask you the same question. Aside from Shucks, was there anywhere
The sweet
else?
shop,
The sweet shop?
that was always, that was my favorite, I'll be very honest with you.
Yeah.
Is that Margaret's Sweet Shop?
Yeah.
Wow. You guys.
That's where the milkshakes were.
Yeah. There's a lot of ice cream in town. You know, back, I'm not sure, but so Joe, I mean, like I said, you both grew up in Maple Shade. How was growing up in Maple Shade, though?
Interesting and fun, as Betty said, right? There were 6 Dugans, by the way. I had my brother Jim, my brother Ed, my sister Pat, my sister Bonnie, and my sister Jane. And the 4th of July was definitely our favorite time earlier in the Maple Shade. But they used to have, an open house on the old softball field, which is now the parking lot behind the main street. And they used to have a donkey baseball game that they would play. And the guys would hit the ball, jump on a donkey, and try to get to first base. We had free hot dogs, free soda.
Wow.
Games for the kids. My sister Jane always won the 3-legged race. I don't know how. I think she cheated, to tell you the truth, right? But free soda, anything you wanted, free ice cream. It was a wonderful day, and what could be better, right? I also remember when the first telephone came to Maple Shade, believe it or not. They couldn't make up their mind what they wanted your number to be. It started out, we were Maple Shade 2, 3613R. That was our number. Then we became Merchantville 8, 3613R. And just when you memorized that, you were Normandy 2, 3613R. And then they went away. The R, J, W, and M were your party lines. You didn't have a single line. So when you picked up your phone, your neighbor could be talking on that line and you could hear every word that they said. It was very interesting. Then the first televisions came to town about the same time, 7-inch screen. So you had to look at it close, and there was only 2 or 3 shows a day. But we had a magnifying glass that we put in front of that 7-inch screen. The picture wasn't so great, but it was bigger, and we enjoyed every minute of it, right? And it was about that time Hurricane Hazel came through Maple Shade. Certainly not the devastation that we see in Puerto Rico and places like that, but it was the most serious storm that I can remember at the time. For summer jobs, you could pick peaches and apples at Reidenbaker's farm, or you could pick blueberries down at Chatsworth. They brought a bus from Maple Shade every day. I did all 3. Apples and oranges were apple and peaches were much easier than the blueberries, let me tell you that right now. And then when we left picking the apples, we would jump into the Rancocas Creek off the Steel Bridge and take a little swim on the way home. You could also deliver the evening bulletin. I did that for a while too, right? So they were the main jobs that you could pick up in Maple Shade. You also had the milkman bringing you milk twice a week. You had the bread man bringing you bread twice a week. You had the mailman bringing you mail twice a day. They came in the morning and they came in the afternoon. The insurance man came and collected your insurance money. And the rag man came. I don't know what they ever did with those rags. They used to go up and down the street, any old rags, and we saved our rags for the rag man. Then the garbage collected by the pig farmers in Delsea, I think they were. The only thing we didn't have was a trash man. We burned our trash. Everybody had a trash burner in the back of their yard. You burned your own trash, and then you took the metal to the dump on your own.
Oh, wow.
The Maple Shade Progress was certainly our most used information site. The fire siren got us home at 6 o'clock. It went off every night at 6 o'clock. It got us home to eat on time, right? And I think the difference between today and now is, to this day, I could tell you every single family that lived on Linwood Avenue between Maple and Fork Landing Road, both sides of the street. We knew, we weren't in each other's houses, but you knew everybody that lived on your street. And I find that amazing.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty awesome. You okay, Ben?
Well, I can go on if you want me to go.
That's true. You've been around a long time.
You were going to ask me what we did for fun. For fun, we played ball at the Aces Field, which was a great time. We had a miniature golf course down at the end of 73, which a big draw for the summertime crowd. The Roxy movie was certainly our favorite. We went to the clay pits. Oh boy, as kids, we loved the clay pits. Maple Shade at one time was a big brick manufacturing area. We had clay pits in the area, and we were digging for fossils and swimming in the water that went there, well, how God knows why, right? And doing anything else we could think of, because the clay pits were a great site for us to play in. We had the Maple Shade Aces traveling baseball team. We had the Maple Shade traveling football team, which we could watch. In the wintertime, we liked to skate at Dunskies, which was on the south side of town, and White Bridge, which was on the north side of town. The carnivals came every year, and we enjoyed them. And then we had all the churches that would have certain things to do every time, which was interesting. We had one church in town, probably shouldn't bring this up, but they were right on the corner of, right behind Main Street. And we called them the Holy Rollers. And I don't know what denomination they were, but as kids, we believed that they rolled up and down those aisles, and we would walk by peeping in to see if we could catch them walking up and down the aisle. We had the Collins Lumber Yard, the Epsom Screw people. Lots of things to do in Maple Shade.
Well, I'd like to just interject on two of those points you gave up. Funny, you said the first TV was what, 7 inches?
Right.
And it's funny now how here we are in 2022 and so many people watch TV on their phones, which are
7
about
inches.
the 7 inches.
We're back to
yeah,
square
so we're
one.
back to square one. We've gone full circle. And the other thing, I grew up on North Cedar. So I know all about the clay pits. We used to go down there and take cardboard and slide down into the clay pits. And yes, I don't know how we survived with swimming in the water down there. There was a lot of creepy stuff going down there is all I'm going to say. And it was a cool time. And you're right. I mean, you knew a lot of people on both sides of your street growing up. And just the fact that, I know my grandmother would yell, and I could hear her from the top of the hill down to the clay pits because she had that kind of a voice. And I knew that if I didn't come back, she was going to come looking for me. And as any kid will attest to you, you never want your grandmother to come looking for you because she will pull you up the street by your ear, and you are embarrassed. So that happened a few times. But the clay pits definitely left a cool image in my childhood. So, Betty, how about you? What do you?
I was just going to add one of our members, his name's Hank Barron. He collected fossils. He has an excellent fossil collection, and he said that he would like the Historical Society to have it, or it would go to another area. So, but it's amazing what they are. Also with the bricks, a lot of people had brick homes because they were actually baked right there, and they could use them to build their homes. So.
And if I'm not mistaken, aren't a lot of the buildings along Main Street, aren't they made with those bricks from the brickyard?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of brick buildings along Main Street, and they go back many years, and that seems to be that's where they came from. So.
80% of their employees came from Maple Shade, too. 3 of my neighbors worked at the brickyard. They walked down the railroad every day to work.
So do you have any glowing memories of growing up in Maple Shade? I mean, anything sticks out that you had fun?
Well, we liked going to the carnival when that came. I had a younger sister, Barbara, and Barbara and I were she was following me. We were like twins.
Cool.
She was there. It's funny, I wanted to mention this Little Red Schoolhouse book, and across the street was Emma Brooks, and she's the author of this little book. Well, years ago, many years going back, when they didn't have a paved street, they had farmers that were going to market. And one of those farmers was Coles Roberts, and that was many years ago. And today it's Jersey Jerry Apple Farm. So that's now a museum. And but the farmers were smart. They had to pay 2 cents to enter into Maple Shade, but also a penny to leave. And on the way back, it would be more pennies, so they didn't want to pay that much money. And they created Front Street because they would go around the turnstiles and then come back onto the pike again, and then on their way to market in Philadelphia.
Well, that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that, too. At this point, real quick, I'd just like to show a couple books that are available. Dennis Weaver in town, great guy, spoke to him a few times, has done these books, and they are chock full of historical pictures, stories, stuff like that about Maple Shade. And on October the 8th, which I believe is coming up pretty soon, we're going to be doing some things for Maple Shade for the centennial. And Dennis is actually, I believe, going to be up at the municipal building with copies of his books. So you definitely want to stop up there if you can to check them out, because they are very, very cool. There's a lot of great pictures in there about the history of Maple Shade, and I think it's going to stoke a lot of people's memories of growing up in town. So just off the top of your head, I'll ask you first, Betty. First, off the top of your head, the coolest historical fact that you can think of about Maple Shade that maybe somebody in town doesn't know about?
Oh,
There
I
you
do
go.
have one item. Like I said, Coles Roberts, when he was alive, was very interesting. And he has a monument that marks where his family landed. They had to leave England, the church, because the Church of England, unless you belong to the Church of England, you had to leave. So a lot of the Quakers left. And they would settle in the area. And there's even tombstones. If you walk down below. Now, I wasn't told by the person taking us. He was from Philadelphia. He was the Friends Society. And he wanted to show where the markers were. And they were cut out. And the names of the date and the names were on the tombstones that were there. I had no idea they were there.
Wow.
A lot of people didn't. But they're the obelisk we have, and that's in the town hall. But Coles Roberts had, I was a teacher, and we had class trips a long time ago, and he asked if we could visit his apple orchard. He greeted us, we went, he gave each child a bag and said, this is a red delicious apple, this is a yellow apple, this is a green apple that your mother would have to put maybe sweetener in. Each child went in with like a bag of apples, and that was a long time ago.
Well,
But his name is still on that obelisk.
yeah,
That's
very
there.
visible down there.
And the tombstones, most of them are there below. But you have to walk through water.
Ah.
It's you have to wear knee-high boots. But it's not. It's interesting though that we have history.
There is one thing I know more about Maple Shade than anything. There's a lot of water in this town. I mean, in the streets. In the
Mostly
creeks,
in your basement.
It's in your basement, in the streets. If it rains, you crush your fingers, you know. So, well, thanks, Betty. Appreciate that. Joe?
I'm going to hold up a book too, right? Maple Shade, A Story of 300 Years, 1682 to 1982. It was done by Arthur Charles and Edith Cutler. It's an excellent story on Maple Shade. It's in our library. If you have a chance, I highly recommend that you get this book and read it. Well done. God love them. They were wonderful people. What I have a problem with Maple Shade is when people criticize us for certain things. And there are two things they always want to jump on. Number one was we had a lot of bars. Yes, Maple Shade had a lot of bars. When Betty and I grew up in Maple Shade, there were 11 bars on Main Street. But keep in mind that Morristown was a dry town, Merchantville was a dry town. We were drawing people from all over to be entertained in our liquor serving areas. So when I say Maple Shade had a lot, we were sharing them with a lot of other people. And I don't think we should be pointed out as drinking too much when everybody else needed that too. And the only other thing that comes to my mind is the gambling casino. Maple Shade did have a gambling casino. Let me assure you, it wasn't what we have in Atlantic City right now. It was, in fact, it still exists down at the end of Fellowship Road. It was a very small building where people came to play cards, so forth and so on. I must admit, I remember well the night it was rated on a Friday night, and we were going down the next day to see if there was any money laying on the floor anywhere. And unfortunately, there was no money laying around. But the gambling casino did exist, and guess what? It's a part of our history, and I think we should be proud of it.
Wow. Yeah, I do. It's funny reading through all these books and all, and just investigating Maple Shade over the years. I actually have. There were some pictures in the paper. There's one of a police officer knocking down the door. There's dents in the door, and a lot of people were taken under advisement of non-council that day, if I'm not mistaken, that they cleared out that room pretty quick.
Oh yes, they were lined up around the municipal building Saturday morning.
Yeah. So yes, Maple Shade. Yeah, and it's funny you do mention about all the bars. I mean, once again, growing up in the '60s, I just remember a few: the Antlers, the Blue Heaven, the Jade Tavern, which was Mary's
Right.
Cafe before, I believe it was, and then it became the Morristown Pub. But what we were really actually doing was assisting other towns, if you put it that way. I
Right.
mean, helping them with their situation of being a dry town. So we were actually very friendly neighbors. So once again, Maple Shade, friendly town, friendly people.
If you want me to run through them, I'll give you a lineup.
Of all the bars?
Of all the bars on Main Street, there was Mary's Cafe, the Friedel, the Sidel, the 3-in-1 Bar, Antlers, Mendel's, the Taxi Inn, the Victory, which became the Maple Inn, and the Blue Heaven, and then the Half Moon, which is now the Alden.
See that?
And
I don't know why I'm surprised you would have all
Now,
the
I didn't
names.
attend all those bars.
I was
now,
going to say, I would
don't-
not be surprised that you had all the names of the bars, Joe. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah.
I only know the name of some of them because the soldiers from Fort Dix were allowed to, they had their Jeep. And one would drive, and then 3 would be and they'd be dropped off at different bars. And then after we had a little party at our house, like my mother would have like cake, sandwiches and cakes and all. And then the calls would come in. We needed pick up at, that they had to go back to Fort Dix. And so my uncle would stay as long as he could. And then whoever drove the Jeep, they took everybody back to Fort Dix. They didn't want anyone driving.
And see that, we were just helping the military also. We're a very helpful town. I'm just going to
That's
say.
correct.
They loved Maple
Still
Shade.
are.
Yeah, we love Maple Shade too, so, you know, we still are a very
Right.
helpful town. You're
Right.
right. We just help out in different ways now.
We're running out of time, right?
No. We got hours. I don't know about. Do you want to, all right, so some historical facts and pictures that you guys want to share.
All right, want me to go? Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead,
Well,
Joe.
let's go to 1975, and I have to admit that I was on council at that time. It was a major change in the township of Maple Shade. We changed the form of government from a committee form to a council manager form of government. We built a new sewer plant, we built a new water plant, we drilled new wells, we resurfaced all the streets. It was a very exciting and I think productive time for the township of Maple Shade. We also were finishing up our urban renewal project, which absolutely changed the entire downtown district of Maple Shade. What we did is we took, and I had, okay, this was the initial, what we first took down. That's the Roxy Theater that you're looking at, and all the stores that went all the way down. The Acme was down at the end of that. This was Maple Avenue, where we knocked down the stores coming down towards Maple Avenue. So that's the Roxy again. This is the famous bar that was knocked down. This is the Victory, which turned into the Maple when we took that down. We also took the bakery down, which was down at the end of the block, Mr. Filipino's Barber Shop. And believe it or not, I didn't know I had a picture of this. The Holy Rollers Church came down.
Wow. Thank memory,
And I
sound
don't
like.
mean to be disrespectful, I just don't know what denomination that was. And the Taxi Inn came down, the paper store, and everything on South Fork Landing Road, on North Fork Landing Road.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't a Taxi Inn, was that like a
Little tiny, right, yes,
one-person
right,
bar
right.
you couldn't turn around when you were in there?
Exactly right.
Okay.
And another thing we had in town, I don't know why, we had ladies' entrances in every bar. I don't think ladies were allowed to come through the front door, believe it or not. Every bar had a ladies' entrance for some reason.
So with Maple Shade's 11 bars back then, we had 22 entrances.
That's right, that's
Wow.
right.
Wow. All right, so we struggled a little bit in certain things, but yeah, I don't know. You're right. That is kind of interesting to do that. So, all right. So, is there anything else you want to share? We got some more minutes. It's not a big deal. So, if you want to,
The only and it wasn't even a controversy. When we were building the when we were rebuilding the town as we constructed it, people were not totally in favor of putting the post office where we put the post office. They wanted us to build stores with apartments on top because that's what we had knocked down. And we seriously considered that. But we had a problem with the post office people because they were telling us that the existing post office was way too small, and what they were going to do is they were going to consolidate us with Mount Laurel and move the post office out of Maple Shade and put it in Mount Laurel. And that's why we made the final decision that we would build let the post office build the new post office right in the center of town. I don't think it was a mistake. I think it brings a lot of business to town. I think people would have missed the post office, and it gave us a chance to build the park.
awesome. And that park is what it is.
It
today.
is what it is, right?
It is the jewel of Maple Shade.
It is a jewel. Yes, it is.
Well, thanks. Are you okay then?
Yes,
You can breathe now?
I can breathe.
Betty, I know you brought some things today that you'd like to share with everyone, so why don't you go ahead and take it for a few minutes. Remember, if you're going to show anything up, try to put it between you and Joe so we can, don't hide your face.
a lady that used to live across the street from the school here, Emma Brooks, and her husband, where her husband passed, and she had some difficulty, and she decided to move to Cadbury. And while she was there, I spoke to her, and so she read this little book. It's for like children, and she said, this made me cry. This book is dedicated to the president of the Maple Shade Historical Society, Betty Procopio, for her dedication and love to the Little Red Schoolhouse, and in memory of Rachel and Anna McElwee, who attended this Little Red Schoolhouse. And it kind of says exactly, they were very helpful the whole time that we were there. Her sister illustrated the book. And the teacher was Miss Grady, and that was in the 1800s. So she kept track of all the teachers, and it turns out that her mother and Frank Brooks, his mother, graduated from the Little Red Schoolhouse. And so it talks about the 1800s and what the children did and skills that they were taught. Now the boys had to rise early and work on the farm across the street. The original farmhouse is still there, only it's modernized now. But they had to do their jobs before they could come to school. And so some of them were tired. And the teacher would say, just rest your eyes for a little bit, and then we'll tell you what you missed.
Yeah.
But it really is, and it looks the same way that it did then. And so we have some items that belong to the schoolhouse. One of them was a maple shade flag, and it had a green leaf in the center and a gold background, and that's at the schoolhouse.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, so you have a couple other things there you might want to share with us.
Well, my father lived on Stiles Avenue. He was kind of like an only child because my grandfather came from Italy, from Calabria. And in order to be able to do this, he had to save his money. He was a hard worker. Save his money, have a sponsor at Ellis Island. You had to have $35 in your pocket. Now this is going way back. And so he did that, and his name was Samuel Severio. And then when my father was born, it was like whatever my father would like to have. He wanted a pony. His father bought a pony. He wanted rabbits. He raised rabbits. He even wanted some pigs, and it was like almost a mini farm that was there. And then, of course, when my grandfather went back to visit Italy, he had went to his town, and there was a lady that was a widow, and she had 2 children. And he felt bad for her, and he decided he was going to marry her and bring them back to the United States. He did that. And like my grandparents, my grandfather passed away first, and then my grandmother. He was not well, and my brother was just a baby, and he said, Marguerite, you get your son, you get my Samuel, you give him a jar, and every night you put a nickel in a jar. So my mother thought, well, okay, is that what you would like me to do? And he said, yes. And she said, can I ask you why? He's only little. And he said, well, when I was in Italy, I didn't have any money, and I would watch all the other children have ice cream. He said, but now, if Samuel has his jar, he'll have a lot of friends because he'll give his friends a nickel to buy ice cream.
All right, so Betty, I see you have a couple other books there that look like they've been out there for quite a while. 100 years old, okay?
Yeah.
They're celebrating their centennial along with Maple Shade.
Yes. And it's the primary grammar book.
Primary grammar book. And what year is that from?
Okay. This was published
A long time ago.
Very long time ago. That was before typewriter. No, I don't know for sure, but
It was before the, 1812.
1812. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yep, that's even before,
Me.
I think that, yeah, Joe was. Just slightly, but yeah, just slightly. But,
And then they had like sampler books. A lot of people didn't speak English when they came to the towns. Like Maple Shade, they might have had like their major language. It could have been Italian, it could have been French, it could have been whatever. But anyway, this is an 1880s schoolhouse sampler. And just a,
that's pretty
And-
interesting, too.
yeah.
A lot of things you don't know about stuff. That's why I'm really glad you brought some of that stuff with you today, because, people need to be reminded about how things were. They weren't always as easy as they are today. Not that they're easy today, but had to go through a lot of different challenges back then
Yeah.
that aren't the same today.
There's also, if anybody wants, it's called the Clipper Ship Publications, and these are like, you can at least read these,
Oh,
but
wow.
the older ones you wouldn't be able to. A lot of one-room schoolhouses have this book. And back again to the Maple Shade. Okay, this is the Historical Society, and so this was part of the time, especially on the holidays, we would have an open house, would have cookies and hot punch for the people that were going to the celebrations. And so again, this is from a series too, Maple Shade Historical Society. They were talking about Mr. Matlack, and some of the names in Maple Shade. Now, there used to be a Matlack ice cream place
Oh, yes.
Yes, over by
Oh,
the
yes.
Circle
Everybody
Drive-In.
knows
Isn't
that
a
one.
Circle Drive-In?
right next to the Circle Drive-In.
Yes, went there many a time.
My grandfather would take us to Matlack's, and I'd say, "Grandpa, do you know Mr. Matlack?" He said, "Yeah, I think he knows us by now."
So, as we wrap this up, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off
No,
there,
that's
but
okay.
what would you give one wish? And this is a complete, I didn't ask you guys this before. If you could wish Maple Shade one thing in the next 100 years, what would you wish it? If you could wish a town something. Joe, I'll let you go
okay,
first.
I'm going to answer that with a true story I can tell you. I went all through school with Dennis Weaver's father, high school, and he came on the council with us when we were first elected. We were sitting talking to each other, and he said to me, I used to be jealous of you in high school. Now, I thought it was my good looks or my great scholastic ability. Unfortunately, it was neither. He said, I was jealous of you because you were from Maple Shade.
Wow.
He said, when your buses pulled up to Morristown High School, you guys
from
came off
Morristown.
with such assurance. Not cocky, just so sure of yourself. He said, I made up my mind then that I was going to move to Maple Shade and raise my kids. And he did. I wish everybody would have that kind of respect for the township of Maple Shade.
That is awesome.
That's a
Thank
true
you.
story. That's
No,
a
it
true
doesn't-
story.
Nothing better than a true story.
That's right.
Betty, you get the last word here as far as what do you wish for Maple Shade for the next 100 years?
I wish that good health to everyone in the next 100 years. I'm looking to new items, new ways. If you're going to buy a book, you might say, oh, it could be a cookbook or whatever, but a way to improve yourself every day. And to share this good news with other people, your friends, family, and basically have a good life.
And quickly too, National Historical Society. If people want to get involved, who would they get in touch with? How would they get in touch with somebody? Little Red Schoolhouse on October 8th.
It could be a little, yes,
Okay.
because we do have cards. We haven't been open because of the COVID, and people had called, and I said, well, until, like, the COVID is now over, hopefully.
Yeah.
But that kind of delayed a lot of visits. So it is open, and we'll put up a schedule.
Well, look, I want to thank you both. Joe, thank you, sir. Betty,
Sir.
thank you, ma'am. I appreciate
Thank
it. Okay, as we wrap this up, I'd like to thank Kim Lyons and the fine video crew here at Maple Shade High School for making this video presentation possible. Also, thanks to the Maple Shade Centennial Committee for all the great events that they put together this year. And we're not finished yet, just to let you know. The big wind-up weekend is going to take place from Saturday, October 8th through Monday, October 10th. The weekend kicks off on Saturday with the Centennial History Trolley Tour from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m., starting and ending at the Municipal Building. Betty, I believe, will be up at the Little Red Schoolhouse. I believe that Dennis Weaver, the author of these 3 books, will be at the Municipal Building, where he will have copies of his books for you to purchase, look at. That will be followed by a grand finale of Maple Shade Day on Monday, October 10th, starting at 10 a.m. at the Municipal Building. You will certainly want to get there early, as the time capsule that was buried in 1972 is opened after 50 years, and we will get to see what the folks back then put into it. There's going to be a full schedule of events, so get up there early, get yourself situated so that you can enjoy the day. So once again, Maple Shade, thanks to all who participated in all the events this year. We had a great time putting them together, and we hope you had a great time enjoying them. So on behalf of the Centennial Committee, the Maple Shade Historical Society, Betty Procopio, Joe Dugan, and Dennis Weaver, who has written these really fine books about our town, I'm Tony Egner saying, so long and happy 100th birthday, Maple Shade.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.